Perfect. Thank you for that, Ben. Again, I appreciate everybody's willingness to kind of bear with us through this technology stuff. And to both Jims, welcome, because I know that you all just got notified about this afternoon. So I appreciate you making the time to try to stick through this with us. So really for me, I have been sitting as the Associate Director of Alumni Engagement for just a short amount of time. I've really only started in this position back in February. I've been with staff though since 2016 and kind of been in various roles throughout my time here so far. So a lot of what we'll talk about tonight are things that I've kind of taken it upon myself to make some initiatives to either update things or provide more clarity, things of that nature. So we've got quite a few slides to go through. I'm gonna my intention behind some of this is to kind of see if any one of these things would spark your interest. If you recognize any one of these topics. And so then if you want some more information afterwards, we can definitely connect and figure out how to get you plugged into some of these opportunities. So again, one of the questions that we asked at the beginning is, if you had any alumni that helped to play a key role in your experience as an undergraduate. For me, alumni really do have such a huge opportunity in front of them because we know that college students are really just starting out, and we're essentially asking them to run a small business when you come down to what the basics are of the operational components of a chapter. So knowing that there's alumni that are there to support them really can go a long way and can mean just as much to them as it would to you in those experiences. So we'll get going through some of these things. Throughout any of this, if you have a question, like Ben mentioned, you can either shoot that in the chat feature there on your screen, or hit the little raise your hand button there, or at the very end, we'll open it up for some questions as well. So kind of getting started here with alumni associations. I know we've got a couple of folks on the call here that are already part of the alumni associations, but what the associations do is they really give us a chance to be engaged with brothers from across generations. You might have a member that has been a member or an alumni for 30 years, and you might have an alumni member that's joining the association that's only been an alumni for 30 days, kind of like Mr. Eric here. So we know that really it runs the gamut with generations in associations, and that's such an incredible way to continue to hold your affinity for Sigma Tau Gamma and to continue to be invested in the organization. From a national headquarters perspective, while we do collaborate with the associations, really the work that happens in associations is at the hands of the members and the executive cabinet. So similar to the undergraduate chapter, you will have an executive cabinet sitting above the association to help guide that body. We know that some associations will come together and really sometimes they'll do just one big event a year, as where others might take it upon themselves to maybe do a couple, maybe do a few events a year, as well as some take the opportunity to create the scholarship opportunities for their undergraduate chapters of their undergraduate members of their chapter specifically. Really, when it comes down to it though as well, alumni associations don't have too much interaction with the undergraduate chapter, being that there's just kind of some risk and liability that sometimes can befall those relationships. So of course there are specific events where they will collaborate together, but for the most part they will tend to kind of stay on their own and do their own things. Where we do see a little bit of alumni association take a little bit more control with the undergraduate chapters, if in the event there is a housing corporation that's managed and owned by the alumni association, there you might see some more folks step in and really support the undergraduate chapter in that way. But those examples and instances are a little far in between at this point. Again, super brief, but are there any initial questions about alumni associations? Ben, do you know if we've got any?
No questions in the chat. If anyone has any questions, you can use the raise hand feature and we'll go ahead and unmute you.
So just a couple more notes about alumni associations. We do help in the initial startups. So there are some resources that we provide for alumni associations in the way of a guidebook and some initial steps. We also have a number of things that we can help the association with once they've been registered and are recognized, albeit insurance, albeit mailings, things of that nature. Obviously right now we're in unusual circumstances, so mailings aren't happening as much as we would like, but there's definitely some pretty good perks being registered with the national organization. The other thing that I'm currently working on is every year we give out an Alumni Association Award of Distinction. And so one of the initiatives that I'm currently working on is every July, alumni associations will get a renewal letter for their association. And so my hope is that in that renewal letter, that alumni associations, should they choose, will have kind of a rubric or a guide as to what they might need to meet in order to be considered for that award. So that'll be something to look for as well, so that organizations or associations understand what possible benefits they might have should they choose to go in that route.
Awesome. Angel, we do have a question from Mr. Champ.
Sure.
So go ahead and unmute him. Robert?
Hey, Angel, the question I have is, what is the difference between a chapter-specific alumni association and then maybe like a greater alumni association? Is there a distinction in the difference in them? For instance, I think I saw something where they have something like maybe the greater Dallas alumni or maybe the greater Atlanta area. Something like that.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Right now, the way that alumni associations have typically worked in the past is that they truly are, if you're joining an alumni association, you're only technically allowed to join that of the one that mirrors your undergraduate chapter. But as you kind of just mentioned, there are some groups that are kind of getting together and trying to figure out if there's a way to formulate area-based alumni associations. It's a rather new endeavor, as it were, so there's not a ton that's been done on them yet. Frankly, I think that might have been a topic of discussion at the House of Delegates Grand Conclave, but as we all know, that didn't happen. So it's definitely something that we're aware of is kind of a moving trend, and I know that our foundation is also aware of that as well. So definitely more information to come on that as we move on forward here. So we're going to keep on going here then to the next topic. If you're wanting to have a little bit more experience directly with the undergraduate chapters, a way to do that is to be a part of the chapter advisory team. So for us, we have kind of a difference between the chapter advisory team and the alumni association. The chapter advisory team specifically works with the executive cabinet members because for me, one of the biggest things that I know I need even just in my personal life is accountability. And so the chapter advisory team offers the opportunity for alumni to work directly with the executive cabinet and help hold them accountable. By no means is the chapter advisory team meant to do the work that the undergraduates should be doing themselves, but really, again, just to lend that advice and the recommendations that they may have based off of their own experiences to the leadership of the undergraduate chapter. So with that, we have the lead advisor, who is the person that runs the chapter advisory team. That person is appointed by us here at headquarters, which not a lot of chapters tend to know about. So it's definitely something that we're doing some more education on as we move forward here. But there's a reason why we have that appointment come through us here at headquarters. And some of the reasons for that is that we get to have a little bit more grit and some commitment from those advisors. But what I mean by that is that we will ask that the lead advisor, the one person in particular, attend a chapter meeting and executive cabinet meeting at least once a month. Those can be done in the same week because a lot of chapters tend to have their executive cabinet meeting right before their chapter meeting. Or they can be done, maybe going to the executive cabinet meeting one week and going to the chapter meeting the next. It really just depends. So we are looking for lead advisors to be geographically close by. So it's usually about a 2-hour drive is probably the max that we would ask of a lead advisor to drive for. We also know that one of the commitments that we ask of the lead advisor is that they attend Web Academy and participate in the alumni advisory track. The alumni advisory track, while the lead advisor is also going to be trained individually at the initial startup, the alumni advisory track at Web Academy offers us the chance to really engage with advisors and get all of them in a room and see who's facing what when it comes to the support that they're offering the undergraduates and maybe some bigger concepts that we might be introducing, things like that. So those are just a couple of examples. With the lead advisor, the thing to kind of know that's probably one of the more important parts about this is that we do ask that the lead advisor be 2 years removed from the undergraduate chapter. The reason for that, there's actually a couple. There's actually a level of liability that comes in with lead advisors, and it can actually vary from state to state. Some will be really harsh on lead advisors, and some might be a little bit more lenient. So knowing that liability is kind of sometimes an intimidating thing to hear, we want to make sure that they understand everything that they're getting themselves involved with there. We also know that, frankly, you look at somebody that maybe just graduated. Again, Eric, I don't want to pick on you because you're here on the call with us. We know that you just graduated, right? So maybe a typical night for you might have been after a hard day of classes that you went over to a brother's house and maybe y'all had a couple beers, or maybe you went to the bar because you were of age. So maybe that kind of a relationship had happened. What we find is really difficult is to tell a lead advisor who maybe just graduated months prior. What we know is challenging for them is to say you can't have that relationship with the brothers that are in the chapter. I mean, they just graduated, so it's very likely that those relationships are there. So it's just challenging for us to have that be a factor. So we know that if we ask for at least a 2-year removal from the chapter since you've graduated before you're considered for lead advisor, that kind of let some of those folks move on. And so you're really dealing maybe with some of the undergraduates who didn't get as much time to work alongside, or potentially even just brand new folks altogether. Lead advisors do serve in a 2-year term commitment. So that falls in conjunction with Grand Conclave, and because of that, the terms could vary. So for everybody who I've appointed as lead advisors here in this last semester, in the last 2 months, all of those folks will serve in that capacity until July of 2022, which will be the next Grand Conclave meeting that we have as a national organization. So that is again kind of a lot. So Ben, if we got any questions, or if anybody on the call has any questions on just the lead advisor stuff so far.
No questions so far. We'll give it a second here.
Okay.
Not seeing any questions here.
Okay, we'll go ahead and keep going here then. The chapter advisory team, of course, we do not expect the lead advisor to do the work all by themselves. So we do have a team that works underneath the lead advisor, and that really gives that person then a chance to not take on all the work, but also if you've got folks, alumni specifically, that are working in a niche area, they might actually be able to lend their expertise to the executive cabinet position that mirrors their position on the chapter advisory team. So you'll see the list of those opportunities there underneath the lead advisor. Again, I'm only ever going to appoint the lead, and then the lead will actually identify and appoint everybody else underneath them.
Hey,
yeah.
Question, whether a lead advisor can serve 2 terms or multiple terms?
Yes, yep. So they can. We look at the 2-year appointment as a way to essentially give somebody an out if they're really just wanting to work through a couple of things with the chapter and they're committed to helping for those 2 years. We want to be able to have just a time and increment that we can measure that in, so that we're not asking somebody to serve for 10 years or for 15 years. But also, if circumstances change and somebody has a job opportunity and they're needing to move, again, lead advisors are asked to be geographically close by. So we recognize that 2 years gives us a good chance to check in with them about the position itself, because of course we're not just waiting 2 years to talk to the lead advisor, we're continuously having conversations. But reaching them at that point and reevaluating the relationship just, again, gives us a chance to check in on things and make sure things are okay. But of course, they'll be given the opportunity to recommit to another 2 years from there. So with the chapter advisory team, the one thing that I would say is there's 2 positions that you see in front of you there that actually will require specificity about who can fulfill those roles. What I mean by that is that we've actually got non-members that are lead advisors. We've just got some really great volunteers, familiar friends of SIGTA, that carry such an affinity for the organization that they've chosen to really step up in a big way and take on some of these roles. The only 2 positions on this list here where there's a requirement for those positions is the faculty advisor. Of course, has to be somebody who works for the university. Again, they don't have to be a brother, but they do need to at least work for that university. And then your ritual advisor has to be an initiated member, and that is for obvious reasons. Knowing that the ritual's pretty intimate program and it's not public consumption, they've just at least got to be initiated so that they can support that process. So we're gonna keep on going here. The next subject that we're going to talk about is national conference opportunities. What I'll point out about these programs is that what you'll see underneath each of the 4 programs is the actual opportunity of volunteership, if you will, for each one of those programs. So what I'll do is just kind of give a brief explanation as to what each program might be, so that if you've not been to that program, you kind of get a little bit of a feel for it. So starting off with our Web Academy, or excuse me, Nobleman. Gonna go in order here. Starting off with Nobleman. Nobleman is a program that is designed specifically for newly initiated members of the organization. So typically what we'll see is that this program will happen probably about 2 weeks before Thanksgiving break. Gives chapters plenty of time to get folks initiated. And it also will take place at a campsite of some sort, because it really gives the chance of collaboration and bonding in a very unique way at that. So the program really allows the newly initiated members the opportunity to start to understand the gravity of the national organization and the span that the national organization can have, because you'll have newly initiated members from all over the place that are attending. It's not just one chapter in particular. So they get to kind of start to feel that sense of brotherhood nationally, but it also speaks to the leadership opportunities within the chapter that they may not be aware of, or maybe they're needing a little bit more insight on, so that they're prepared for potentially stepping into those shoes in those leadership roles. So when it comes to alumni, we do have on one of the nights during the program, alumni come into the site and they sit on a panel, and undergraduates get to ask them direct questions. There's also a component of the program where they talk about the ritual in a little bit more in-depth and meaningful conversation. So again, that's why the members that are attending that program must be initiated as well. So a really great program. I got to be at the very first site. We do 4 sites across the country so that we can hit as many members and also be as cost effective or cost conscientious. Probably not even saying that word right, but we just want to be mindful of what we're going to ask them from a financial standpoint. So it's a really great program. When it comes to Grand Conclave, that is the business meeting of the organization. So that happens every other year. Unfortunately, it wasn't able to take place this year, but it is where the House of Delegates votes on any major changes that may be coming down the pipeline for the organization. Typically, you'll see a lot of those changes directly impact the undergraduates. So because of that, we have 2 to 3 voting delegates that will attend Grand Conclave on behalf of the chapter, to sit in on those meetings and to have a voice on behalf of the chapter. Alumni associations also have the opportunity to send 1 voting delegate, as long as they're registered through the national organization, because we do know that some alumni associations choose not to register with us, which is completely fine, but those that do, they have that opportunity to send a voting delegate. So as you kind of see there under the opportunities of volunteership there, we actually, one of the silver linings, if you will, about Conclave not actually happening in person was the idea and the concept that we were able to bring workshops, which would have taken place at Conclave, into a virtual way. So we've got alumni that have really been able to submit their applications to host the workshop, just like this one if they wanted to, and we'll continue to have that opportunity as we move forward. So definitely a unique way for us to reach more alumni, and we're excited about it for sure. Web Academy is the next program, and that is our officer training program. It was formerly known as President's Academy and Sigma Tau Gamma. Fun fact, definitely a good perk for us. Sigma Tau Gamma was the first national men's Greek organization that hosted a program where they were specifically training an officer. So again, because it was President's Academy, it was all chapter presidents came to Warrensburg, Missouri at the time and sat in the back office and got trained on what it meant to be a president. We're happy to say that that program has since that time really grown and expanded. So We now hold Web Academy in the city of wherever headquarters is at the time. So that for us is here in Indianapolis. And the program is inviting the president, the director of finance and operations, the director of recruitment, and the fourth position is always the rotating one. This next year will be the standards board chairman. Those four will come to Indianapolis for a weekend. And really for us, it's probably one of the most important programs that we can produce each year because it gives us the chance to really set those leaders up for success in their chapters. Along with the chapters attending that program, as I mentioned, the lead advisors are encouraged to attend the alumni advisory track, of that program. So that's where you'll see some alumni participate there, but also if they wanted to help facilitate small group discussions in some of those executive cabinet position tracks specifically. The last one here is the Endeavor Conference. So the Endeavor Conference is a program that is offered in the off years of Conclave. So again, like I mentioned, that only happens every other year. So in that gap year, we have the Endeavor Conference. And it's a program that supports the purpose of Sigma Tau Gamma, and it allows the attendees of that program to continue to move Sigma Tau Gamma's purpose forward. Over the last couple of years, we have specifically dealt with subjects of masculinity and how that affects the fraternity of men, not just in a fraternal way, but also in just a societal way, because we know that things are continuously evolving and changing. We also offer a track that's really setting up newly graduated members or folks that are getting ready to graduate, set them up for success so that if they need tips and tricks of the trade for their first job interview, if how to negotiate salary or how to negotiate, different components of a new job, the track that we present in that program gives them the chance to do that as well. Again, throwing a lot at you, so if you're able to keep up, I definitely appreciate it. Are there any questions, Ben, from this slide so far?
No questions so far, but if any come in, I'll make sure to get those asked on the next slide.
Good deal. We'll keep trucking along here then. The regional structure, we're excited about this. I will give the caveat that the regional structure, for how some may have known it in the past, is actually evolving and being repurposed. So we are currently in the preliminary stages, I'd say, of repurposing the regional structure and what it's going to look like. We plan to utilize the landscape of the regional structure support the chapter advisory teams, and thus then the executive cabinets and potential alumni associations. They can run the gamut of what the regional structure can truly do for the organization, but we've got to be really purposeful and mindful as we move through setting this new program up. So just to give you a little bit of kind of some insight as to what that program is going to look like, you'll see that our intentions right now is that the executive cabinet would report to the chapter advisory teams. The chapter advisory teams then would report to the regional officers, and then those regional officers will work with us. Now I say that and also want to give the note as well that by no means does this mean, though, that if an executive cabinet member is having an issue that they should not call headquarters. We're going to really clearly define what those relationships look like. But this is just kind of an example of how some of the more day-to-day things might go when it comes to dialogue and conversations that are happening amongst each one of those groups there. And again, it really just allows that accountability for the undergraduates as well as the alumni. It really just allows that accountability to be really strong, like we need it to. If you have any interest in the regional structure and in the things that come out with it, and do know that the regional director applications are something that are going to be coming pretty soon. Those, again, will be either on sigta.org on the blog and the website there. We'll likely release that via social media to make that announcement as well. So Facebook, Twitter, things like that, as well as then emails. You can never beat an email. So we'll be sending out more information there via email to make sure that folks are in the know. And again, if you've got any questions about that, be more than happy to take those if I don't have the answers to them right now. But also, more to come for sure. Any questions there?
No questions so far.
Okay. It looks like Jim Baum might have a question. I don't know if maybe you want to unmute him really quick, Ben. Jim,
Okay.
did you have a question?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
Oh, okay. I was talking about what I had done so far. We've had more problems. We finally shut off the laptop, and I'm now on my iPad, which is working better. I would like to see us try to contact all the chapters in Oklahoma and those that are gone by the wayside, see if we can't bring them back, because there were so many chapters in Oklahoma since it was kind of the center point when SIGTAW was getting started, especially with Zeta chapter. And Central State's a good, strong chapter, but you know, what happened to the chapter at Oklahoma University, see if we can figure out, try to bring that back, and any other chapters. That's a challenge I would like to see as a Zeta chapter kind of struggle for, or go for it.
Sure. No, I appreciate that, and I hear you. Like I said, we are taking things one step at a time, knowing that there's certain protocols and procedures that happen when it comes to opening new chapters, and especially now. I mean, everybody's kind of gotten pushed back on their timeline of when we're going to be going to new chapters or reopening chapters because of the whole pandemic. Definitely some good thoughts and some good questions there, and we'll make sure to keep those on the radar and continue to try to update folks as we're able to, for sure. So we'll keep going along here. The next slide is talking about national volunteer opportunities. So when alumni and members at that, undergraduate members at that, want to take a bigger role in the national organization, these opportunities really give them the chance to do that. So Sigma Tau Gamma is invested in the continued development and improvement of the membership experience, and again, alumni really speak to that pretty highly. So one of the opportunities of the three here is committees. Committees can kind of run the gamut in terms of different subject matters and themes. So the four that are listed here are not the only four committees that we currently have active. They're just examples of some that we could have. So obviously, as we know right now, not just the nation, but the world around us is really having some pretty big conversations about diversity and inclusion. So we've got a diversity and inclusion committee that's going to be really leading some initiatives for the organization moving forward to really try to commit to some change for us. Again, every one of those, we could go into so much detail if we wanted about what those committees do, but definitely if you have any interest, let me know. And if you're wondering if there is a committee that exists for any one specific subject and it just doesn't happen to be up here, we can see if it does. And if it doesn't, that might be something that we have a conversation about. So in terms of a headquarters staff, we actually take our direction from and take our lead from boards that manage the company. So when you think about Sigma Tau Gamma at headquarters, it really is kind of an umbrella. And underneath that umbrella, you've got three companies. You've got the fraternity, you've got WP and housing, and you've got the foundation. So with the fraternity, we're kind of led by the board of directors. With the housing company, they are led by the board of managers, and then for the foundation, they're led by the board of trustees. Now, out of those three boards, there is a fiduciary commitment that they all make in being on those boards. So that's just something to kind of know as well. It's an annual commitment to the foundation. And then with the board of directors, the difference with them versus the other three is that the board of directors will actually be appointed by the House of Delegates and really be voted to be in the board of directors. So if you're ever interested in learning more information about any one of these boards, I encourage you to reach out to myself. And if I don't know the answer, I will definitely get you the answer or send you to the person that would be best suited to respond to that question. So those are, you know, pretty important relationships for us. The last one there that you'll see is the National Alumni Advisory Council. This is actually one of our newer volunteer opportunities from a national perspective. The National Alumni Advisory Council's primary focus is to help the staff discuss complex issues and make recommendations to the board of directors per research that maybe came from that capsule. So they are still in development and still pushing through some initiatives themselves and still kind of gaining some momentum, but definitely an important board, and we're excited to see the work that they'll do for the organization. Any questions on any one of these three areas.
No questions currently in the chat. If anyone else has a question, just go ahead and raise your hand and we'll go ahead and get you unmuted. Oh, hold on.
Yeah, it looks like Jim is talking.
You go.
There we go.
Okay, on diversity and inclusion committee, what are we talking about on that committee?
Yes, sir. So that one, there's actually a meeting for that here on Wednesday for that committee. That committee is really looking at what are the, whether it's programmatical things that we offer or it's the member education experience, what are the things that we're doing as an organization to make ourselves welcoming and inviting to people of different backgrounds, religions, sexual orientation, whatever that diversity and that inclusion needs to look like. They're having those conversations. I know that the group hadn't had a chance to meet for the last week or so. So this next meeting, I am pretty interested to see where the conversation goes from there and how we as an organization can continue to move forward and supporting all of our members in a way that is meaningful and in a way that matters, knowing that, you know, there's a body of our students, our Black students in particular, that are being targeted and things like that. So there's no specifics that I could give you right this second, but again, that's just because I think they're going to be reshifting some focuses of what needs to happen moving forward. And again, if you have any interest in joining any of these committees, let me know and I can get you in contact with the right folks to see. I don't know, or I wouldn't imagine that we would turn anybody away if they're interested in joining one of those committees, because I don't think that we have caps on them in terms of how many people can be participating in them. But that's also something that we're, I think, still working through. We've fortunately or unfortunately, I don't think we've ever gotten to the point where like there might be too many people on this committee. So we're sitting at a good point, I think, right now. Kind of wrapping it up a little bit here. Oh, sorry, Ben, did you have a question?
Another question from Eric.
Yes, Eric, please.
Yes, this is a two-part question. So with could you go back to the last slide actually for me?
I absolutely can, yep.
All right, thank you. So what are kind of some of the main responsibilities involved with the Alumni Engagement Committee, say for my chapter specifically or any Sigma Tau Gamma chapter specifically?
Yeah, that committee, I'll just be fully transparent and honest in that it's not a committee that I've actually been a part of, which is strange, right? Because I'm the Associate Director of Alumni Engagement.
Sure.
So you would think that I was, but it's a committee that's led and was started by our national president, Jim Johnston. And so I know that he and Vanessa have been working pretty intimately with the group there. I, again, don't have a ton of information, but if you want to shoot me an email, which will be here on the next few slides, you can send me that request and I can definitely find some more information out about it for you. As it says, I would imagine it's about alumni engagement, but I just don't know what exactly they're doing there. So, and you said you had a second part to this question, correct?
We may have lost his audio there.
Yeah, when he loads back up, we'll maybe come back to this if it doesn't go through.
Yeah, when he gets reconnected, we can go ahead and answer that question.
At least he was smiling on the frozen picture.
And then I had a...
Oh, Eric?
Yes?
So you were cutting out a little bit. It sounds like maybe it fixed itself. But you had a second question?
Yeah, absolutely. I can repeat the question. So with the information about the Alumni Engagement Committee, is there maybe a section under the alumni portion on the official Sigma Tau Gamma website that maybe I could reference possibly, or are you guys at headquarters still kind of constructing that out?
Yeah, we're still building that out for sure. It was funny that you said it because I just had a conversation with our director of communications today to say that I think we've got to build out a little bit more resources on the website for that, because that's where we're wanting for it to be the be all place for all things resource related for SIGTA. So an area that's not there, but hopefully will be in the near future.
Sure. And then just a couple of recommendations of that.
Sure.
If you guys want to maybe post that to your different social media platforms and maybe put a little plug in the Saga magazines that alumni and undergraduate gets, maybe they can maybe be able to get a preview of it and build more interest as they become alumni members. Or if they're alumni members, give them
Shoot, kind of sounds like your audio is breaking up again on us, Eric, unfortunately. But again, if you have any questions, if you're able to kind of
it as well. So I would recommend.
Yeah, for some reason, Eric, your audio keeps cutting in and out, unfortunately. So I would just say the recommendations and the questions that you have, shoot those over to me. I'd love to hear them. And again, I'll make sure that those get to the right folks, and we'll continue to do what we can to build out resources as quickly as we can, for sure.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much.
Yep. So again, kind of rounding this all out, what we know about our students right now, and again, how the direct impact of alumni can support them. We know that there's a new normal, right? We've heard it from several universities at this point that there may be social distancing in effect, but that they're committed to having students back on campus in the fall. We know that others have very been very upfront in saying we're going to do virtual, and then we've seen folks that are doing a combination. So I think now more than ever, our undergraduate men are going to need the support of our alumni so that they aren't allowing for the current circumstances to intimidate them or for them to kind of tap out and say, we're done, we're not doing it. Because they truly feed the alumni that we continue to gain as an organization. One of the other things that we know is that the number of attendees that go to a community college versus a university might spike. We look at Generation Z, which is the current incoming generation into colleges, and we know that they're very financially mindful and cognizant. I, as a person in a category of generations, am a millennial myself, and I know that when I looked at college as a high school student, I think me and a lot of my friends around me said, college is going to be expensive, but we're going to take out loans and we're going to do it. But I think when you look at the Generation Z right now, they're not thinking that so much. They're thinking, what are the scholarship opportunities and what are the working jobs on campus that I can do to help pay for college so that I don't leave it with a ton of debt. What that means then is that they are, again, taking on more part-time work during school, but also they're looking for whatever decisions that they make when it comes to their social component of their experience in college. They're looking to be very mindful about those, and it's going to have to mean something for them and be justified for them to want to spend that money. The other thing that we know is that the media does sometimes an awful job at portraying fraternity. So what that means is that when you think about a student going into college, they're always kind of on this line that they're walking, right, of whether yes, they'll join something or no, they won't join something. But sometimes with fraternities, they're not even on that line. They're already over into the no. So being able to have a committed alumni in the chapter advisory team or having them have really great relationships with the alumni association is really going to speak to that experience that member can gain. Because, the word I think that everybody, not just in SIGTAW, but I think in all of Greek world, the word that everybody throws around is networking, right? They joined for the networking. We've got to really build onto that networking though to make it meaningful and make it last for those members that are looking for that experience. Again, they're going to join fraternities to be accepted. They're going to join if that organization is being committed to social movements and things that are affecting their everyday lives. And the microscope is just bigger than it's ever been. So they're going to continue to push back against tasing. They're going to continue to push back against how social media is used and all of those things. And alumni in any one of the things that we've talked about tonight have that opportunity to really push them forward, to keep them accountable, to help enhance that experience, and to help drive initiatives that are going to affect not just alumni or not just undergraduates, but the entire body of Sigma Tau Gamma.